On this small two-lane highway in rural Kansas, a posy of flowers flutters in the breeze each time a car or truck flies past. A memorial to a life lost, a family's hopes and dreams crushed.
But he was my son, and I was always proud of him.
Robert Green's son, Rocky, a local elementary school teacher and football coach, died on this bridge back in 2006. Police reports say he fell asleep, drifted across the center line, and ran straight into the concrete guardrail.
He was coming home to his wife who was pregnant, and 2 months later she had a little girl.
Yeah.
We lost him that night. I think I would call this a killer post, yes.
And Green's not the only person to die like that, in the middle of the night, crashing into these immovable concrete barriers. Dave Webb noticed the first death back in 1966.
As a teenager, the first fatal accident with these blunt end guardrail bridges involved my second cousin. He was killed west of town.
Following Byron Jellison's death a year later was Merlin Klein, then Rocky's death, followed by Merlin Hazen 4 years later and Brittany Turley just last December.
We've since learned of a sixth victim, possibly another.
Webb works with the local paper, the Protection Press. He says Turley's death in particular hit the community hard and reawakened questions he's had for decades.
But those posts they have no give. And all of these fatalities have occurred when someone hit the end of one of those bridges and either died on the spot or died in a hospital soon afterward. Why do we still have 9 of them?
He started researching and learned this style of guardrail goes back to the 1930s in Kansas, and they're not the only thing making rural highways here so deadly. The lack of a shoulder near the bridges, also a problem.
Here in Comanche County, they consider the bridges like these so dangerous that the sheriff actually sent a deputy out to provide traffic control for us.
Technology has advanced. Why can't that safety be applied to our highways in Comanche County?
Webb's paper teamed up with the Western Star and Coldwater, laying out what he discovered and who the public needed to contact at the state capitol to make change happen. Green agrees with Webb's mission, enduring the pain of coming back to where his son died to support it.
And I know it can't do anything for the 16 years we've lost, but it might save some other child.
In response, they got this letter from Kansas Secretary of Transportation Julie Lawrence saying upgrade projects would replace 2 of the 9 blunt end guardrails as part of the state's new Clear Zone project. A $10 million effort aimed at upgrading dangerous sections of state highways in rural Kansas counties. That work scheduled to begin in 2024.
So the reality is we have about 70 of these bridge railings across the state, and we want to fix this problem.
Lawrence said bridge upgrades across the state are behind schedule after falling from an average of 83 bridges a year in 2016 to just 12 in 2018.
You might remember that in the last decade, more than $2 billion was taken out of the highway program.
The secretary says since taking over the Department of Transportation in 2019, she's brought that average back up, expecting to complete 84 bridge repairs and upgrades this year. But that's out of 25,000 bridges statewide.
We're trying in the most practical way possible to find ways to make improvements sooner than later, but sometimes it just really takes as long as it takes, and we are trying to accelerate timeframes wherever we can.
I was very disappointed in the response we got from KDOT, glowing about the fact that 5 miles of our highway was going to be improved and 2 of these bridges would be taken care of. The other 7 were totally ignored in the letter. And neither one of those 2 bridges have been involved in fatal accidents.
So I asked Lawrence and her team about that.
Why pick those 2? I spoke to a lot of folks in the county who are like, that's not where we've seen the deaths.
The selection of that particular stretch of route was based off of traffic volumes, which, a lot of the accidents, the crashes that happen at these bridge rails are typically somewhat random. So we're really looking at exposure.
We would not just put one entire county in front of all the other counties if there isn't the data that shows that all of that work should go first.
Too little, too late for folks like Webb and Green already grieving losses. They plan to continue lobbying for more improvements now.
We think it's time for these to go.
If it saves one person, it's well worth it.
Lawrence told me the current timeline is based on current funding levels, and she has the Department of Transportation looking for grants and other ways of raising money to complete bridge repairs like this more quickly. Pilar Pedraza, Cake News investigates.